If you could touch the alien's hand and hear the cries of strange birds and watch them wheel in another sky, would that satisfy you?
Since a number of my regular viewers are unfamiliar with Doctor Who, we're going to start out at the very beginning to help learn at least a little bit of the essential elements of the show. And for many others, the 21st Century series is the only one they know, so it's a chance to see its humble origins. The original series was a weekly serial, typically of 4 or 6 episodes that formed a single story, though there have been stories of as little as 1 and as large as 8, and occasionally there was one of 10, one of 12, and one of 14, depending on your interpretation. Anyway, this means the show is structured differently than the updated series is, because back then the show wasn't intended to be watched back to back like we take it for granted today, and so it can sometimes move at an odd pace if you think of it as one long episode instead of a number of short ones. In early Doctor Who, each episode had a standalone title, and also each flowed directly from chapter to chapter, the Daleks ending with the setup for Edge of Destruction ending with a setup for Marco Polo, and so on. For that reason, the story called An Unearthly Child probably more accurately could be considered 2 stories, structure-wise, the first a standalone and the other a 3-parter. But we'll be covering all 4 anyway this week because, hell, I love watching goofy cavemen. This thing here is a police box. It's not a phone booth, as you access the phone from the outside, and the inside's essentially a remote police station. They allowed anyone to contact a local police station quickly, and so there were lots of them, meaning that at the time that this was shot, this was a rather mundane object. When two-way radios became more common by the end of the 60s, the police boxes were gradually phased out, so that for most people it only lives on in Doctor Who, because that police box there is actually the Doctor's ship. At a nearby school, Ian and Barbara discuss their pupil, Susan Foreman, who doesn't seem quite right. Since attempts to reach her grandfather just led to an old junkyard, they decide they'll tail her tonight to see where she goes. Not too sure if this is the way we should be meeting these characters. Ian, would you mind helping me stalk a 15-year-old girl into a dark alley tonight? Oh, just try and stop me! As they lie on their jailbait stakeout, they discuss some of the odd things Susan says.
Don't be silly, Susan. The United States has a decimal system. You know perfectly well that we do not.
Of course the decimal system hasn't started yet.
And yeah, they did wind up going decimal later on. The prey soon arrives and they follow her inside, only to find that she's disappeared. Instead, they run across an old man who is smoothly evasive, but they're convinced that he's locked her up inside the police box. When Susan unwittingly lets them in, we get the first look at one of the most important things to know about the ship. It may be a closet-sized box on the outside, but once you get inside, it's enormous. Bigger on the inside than it is on the out, they often say. Ian, being the scientist, is a bit flabbergasted at the way the ship makes space its bitch, and is even more shocked when Susan says the TARDIS, that's its name, can go anywhere at any time, like the Nexus in Generations, only without Whoopi Goldberg. Thank God. The old man, who is in fact the Doctor, laughs a bit at Ian's behavior as he futzes with things, musing about the problems that this presents for them, given the small-mindedness of human bigotry.
Now, don't get exasperated, Susan. Remember the Red Indian. When he saw the first steam train, his savage mind thought it an illusion too.
Doc ain't one for political correctness, is he? The Doctor and Susan admit they're not humans, but aliens, forced to flee from their home planet. We later learn this world is Gallifrey and that they are Time Lords. All in all, he's quite bemused at their antics and insists to Susan that they can't be allowed to leave or else they'll give them away and then she'd have to leave the 20th century behind. When she insists that if it comes down to it, she'd rather be left behind, he decides to hell with all of them and just dematerializes anyway, sending them out of the 20th century so hard the opening credits start up again. Okay, kids, what's wrong with this picture? The caveman part of the story begins with the Cave of Skulls. They're unhappy because they need some fire, and the son of the dead fire maker doesn't seem to be working out. Dumbass is doing it wrong again. Of course, that's just fine with this lady, Mary Whitehouse, who thinks everything was just fine without fire. Zahir doesn't seem to be impressing the crowd.
Put on more of the dead fire.
Oh yeah, mustn't forget the bone. Can't make fire without that. Poor schmuck. Can't make fire. And an election year of all times. Yeah, Mr. Vacuous Expression here is out looking for food for the tribe in a bid to take leadership away from Za. He spotted the TARDIS, where Ian and Barbara are shocked to see that it's all true, and the Doctor perturbed that the TARDIS is malfunctioning, first without being able to say where they are, and also by still being a police box. It's got this thing, see, called a chameleon circuit that's supposed to automatically change to blend it in, but it doesn't work anymore. Rather brilliant cost saver. Just tell everyone it's broken and leave it alone. We'll get a couple of decades out of it at least. Cal, that's his name, sees the Doctor light a pipe and jumps him, hauling him back to the cave, where Za shows just how hard the government's working on that whole fire issue. I'm not eating that. Looks stringy.
And I, Cal, carried him here to make fire for you.
Running on your record when it's not very long, that's a ballsy move. We're going to have to see if this works out for him.
Why do you listen to Cal?
Za has many good skins. He has forgotten what the cold is like.
Huh? Tomorrow, I kill many bears. You all have warm skins.
Man, the rhetoric from these guys is all the same. I'm voting for a third-party caveman.
Do you want fire? Or do you want to die in the cold?
What were my choices again? As they argue, the Doctor wakes up. Ah! It's the damn Red Indians! They found me! He quickly offers to make fire, but when Cal kicked the crap out of him earlier, he dropped his matches, so he's stuck. Cal doesn't take the news well, but his efforts are thwarted by Susan, who he'll find out is quite a spunky little thing. Even that's not enough, and so 21 minutes into the Cave of Skulls, they finally wind up in the Cave of Skulls. We learn part of the reason Za wants to be leader is that whoever's leader gets to marry Will Ferrell's daughter. And ain't she a dish, huh? Murray Whitehouse isn't convinced.
I will kill us all in the end.
Why does no one else care about our carbon footprint? With them scheduled to be killed the next day, Mary gets up from the group orgy in the next episode, The Forest of Fear, and sneaks in the back way. She offers to free them if they promise to leave and not help them make fire.
Fire will bring trouble and death to the tribe.
There'll be teen pregnancies and internet piracy. Za isn't exactly pleased with this arrangement, and despite it being night, Miss Deliverance convinces him to go after them. When Cal shows up, he's even less pleased, and despite the ladies' protests that fire would be bad, he decides to kill the old lady anyway. In the wilderness, jobs are quickly delegated, as the Doctor's put in charge of slowing everyone down, and Barbara in charge of panicking. The sight of a fresh kill means the dreaded POV monster is about, and it kicks Za's ass so badly that Ian and Barbara go back to help him, with the Doctor grudgingly coming along when Susan won't leave them behind. He points out that they're exposed to attack by the tribe, but instead of agreeing to abandon Za, they plan to make a stretcher and haul him back to the ship.
Let you off me. What are you doing?
The Doctor's response is something just this side of Homer Simpson going, I was just going to hit him on the head with this rock. No!
Well, I was going to get him to draw our way back to the TARDIS.
The scene right here is one of contention. Is the Doctor considering killing the wounded man to save his own hide? It's understandable that many want to say no. I mean, he is the hero of the show, after all, and this kind of thing is something even Rimmer at his worst wouldn't consider. But given the context of the situation, it does seem the most likely explanation, and in the overall story, I think it actually does the character some good. It shows where he began from and helps show why he develops as he does. When he runs into people over the years who show such callousness and cowardice that the suffering and dying of others is allowed to happen, he's outraged no matter the circumstances, because he himself knows what that feeling of desperation and self-interest is like. And it was the intervention and judgment of Ian that helped stop him. So he does the same for others to snap them out of their moral cowardice, just as it was done for him. And it also explains his connection with humanity, why he so often visits Earth, why most of his companions over the years have been humans, because despite their limitations, in the end, they brought out the best in him. And not just Ian and Barbara, like here, but Vicky and her strong moral stands, Katerina, who deliberately killed herself so the Doctor could save Earth, Sarah Kingdom, who even as she was dying never stopped in her efforts to defeat the Daleks. And when Stephen momentarily abandons him because he didn't agree with the Doctor's moral choice in the massacre, leaving the first Doctor at his most emotionally exposed. Humans are his favorite species because they brought out the best in him. and his occasional contempt for them is only when they fail to measure up to what they've proven they can be. Cal lies to the tribe about what happened, and they go after them. Using the power of teleporting natives, they manage to ambush our heroes outside the TARDIS, leading into the Firemaker. Cal tries to frame Za for the murder of the old woman, but since he's barely smarter than the rocks he's carrying, the Doctor points out that the so-called murder weapon has no blood on it.
It is a finer knife than yours.
My Cal says it's a bad knife.
This knife can cut and stab. I have never seen a better knife.
Act now, and we'll throw in this state of Kansas Jell-O mold. Yeah, that's two Simpsons things. I just need to pad out this little anti-bot break.
This knife shows what it has done. There is blood on it.
Wow, I thought only Daffy Duck fell for that trick. The Doctor is quickly able to turn the crowd against Cal. What? All I said was this fire was good enough for Jehovah! With Cal driven off, Za has them locked up in the Cave of Skulls again, with a guard on the back door. His position is better with Cal gone now, but without fire that may not last. So he decides that he'll work with the Liberal Democrats to form a coalition government. So, in a secret meeting revealed through WikiLeaks, we learn he plans to release them in return for the secret of fire, though Ian doesn't think it should be a secret.
But in our tribe, the Firemaker is the least important man.
I do not believe this.
He is the least important because we can all make fire.
Ah, but no Firemaker will increase unemployment, cause recession. Meanwhile, Will Ferrell speaks against Za to the tribe.
You should lie on the old stone till your blood runs into the earth.
This is going to lead to an awkward Father's Day, isn't it? Elsewhere, Cal gets the jump on the guard and attacks, leading to fur-covered MMA until Za emerges as the victor. Thank God for prehistoric underpants. Za takes the torch and proves he's awesome to the whole tribe.
Yes. I remember how the meat and fire joined together.
Lucky thing we got you, Will. Never'd figure that one out by ourselves. Za brings meat, but being stuck here sucks, and he won't let our heroes go, so they use torches and skulls to briefly trick them into thinking they were dead so that they could escape back to the TARDIS. A quick getaway protects them from pursuit, but without a chance to tell where they had landed, it's a blind leap, dropping them onto a planet that, we'll later learn, is the homeworld of the Daleks. The first chapter, An Unearthly Child, gets a stamp of strongly recommended. It establishes a number of the concepts very quickly and memorably, though the Doctor does come off as a bit of a jerk. The other three get a stamp of watchable for the kitsch. It's pretty well paced, but overall not a very strong outing. Mostly should be watched either for the camp value, enjoy the jogging in place while grips pelt them with tree branches escape, or if you just don't want to miss any steps in the chain. The Doctor's reputation for being an anti-hero in this first story is mostly undeserved. He puts himself on the line to save Ian's life, stood up to Cal, and he tried to help Barbara get over her terror of being trapped. In the forest, that was the one real time where he let his selfishness and cowardice get the better of him. There's some debate over the title of this story, since each episode has its own title. Though the DVD and tapes all call it An Unearthly Child, it's also known as 100,000 BC and the Tribe of Gum. These are the kinds of things the internet flame wars are made for. Personally, I really like the early TARDIS control room, with its spaciousness, furniture, huge glass partition. The later ones in the original series tend to look a bit drab and claustrophobic by comparison.
What concrete evidence would satisfy you,
Just open the doors, Dr. Foreman.
Eh? Doctor Who? What are you talking about?